Here we go. It's Monday. It's a very exciting day. Starting off the week right. Wonder how things are going for us here. It looks like we're having a couple minutes here for everybody to get in and join up. Looks like everybody's coming in. Alex is just dropping in. We got Connie here. We got Leah. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Leah, I saw you dropping some knowledge there inside of the Discord channel. That was cool to see.
My little form,
Yeah.
I like that. I like the Ivy League method also, but the Eisenhower matrix is pretty cool. You did it in a different way though. I thought that was very helpful when you really honed in on one particular task and breaking up that task into what those boxes would be. Instead of just a day's worth of to-do list, you kind of look at a specific item. That was good.
So that was helpful to show how the zoom in works.
Very insightful. I never thought to use it that way.
Oh, very cool. Well, I got a secret for you. I've just figured it out by trying things and seeing what works over time. So happy to share it with you about like what's worked for me into it. I think we also have some, Leah, did I see you interact? I saw you interacting some in the Discord channel. I think I saw Connie in there too, maybe a little bit from Alex as well. That's awesome, guys, to see everybody inside of that channel. I think my intention with that Discord channel is to start. I'll be starting to, of course, I already have, and me and Pete and get all the staff. I'm actively monitoring everything that's happening in Discord and start interacting there. So that way, everybody who joins in to the Royal Legal Solutions community, their first touch points is like, hey, come to the group coaching and get into the Discord channel and start the conversation. So you can start to get plugged into like what the community, like what the conversations are like, what kind of shows we're doing, what are the replays, that whole kind of feel. So appreciate you guys and getting in there to be part of that, and hopefully you'll get some personal benefit out of it. But I also know that you'll get be helping out greatly as it's just helping expand the community and make people feel welcome and comfortable, because the bigger our community gets with the stage right now, the stronger it's going to be. Also want to flag for you guys too, that's coming up for us like down the pipe here. As you know, we also have that Royal Investing show that comes up on Wednesday. I'm in discussions now with how we can start getting actual deals and investment opportunities inside of that Royal Investing show, right? So the intention here is to be able to create an opportunity for all of us to be able to present deals present deals in the right kind of way. To one, get upskilled on how do we actually present deals to a community, and two, how do we as a community vet a deal to see like who is this, what type of deal, who is this appropriate for? Is this the right kind of deal that we should go through? So keep that on your radar for joining in on Royal Investing as we're starting to get down like that initiative of being able to bring that to that community in that call. There. Awesome. Yeah, so I hear Leah's in here. So yeah, that's a big 2022 priority for me, is to find the transactional opportunities, getting that deal flow up. Yeah, you and everybody, Leah. I've been asking to say like, hey, you know what we need more deal flow. Where are the deals that we can get into? And what I'm hoping to bring to the community is options that are truly passive options, right? Of saying like, great, what ways are we going to be able to have truly passive investments and be able to look at those deals in a way that we can all understand what that deal means, right? So that'll be a work in progress, right? But appreciate you, Leah, and everybody joining in on our Wednesday calls, as well as our other tax calls, because the more integrated we are as a community, the more these calls make sense to be like focal points for us at each days of the week of where do we set our mindset, right? And our intentionality as it comes through, that's going to be the real leverage, right? It's dialing in these things and making sure they all connect up here together in a great way. Great. So looks like we're at 5 past. So it's time to jump into breakout rooms for some intentional connection work. Guys, remember, as part of the intentional connection work, right, what we're trying to do is look to develop those relationships, to discover more about each other, to be able to find out what are our relative strengths and what relative strengths we all have, and where we've seen those strengths play out in each other's lives, because that tells us for our board of directors about who is going to be the important people in our lives when we come up with a challenge, right? So when you're meeting inside these breakout groups, always make sure to flag having lots of good notes about identifying where people are strong strong such that when you have a challenge in the future, you'll have notes to rely back on to say, who have I met before that's been good at that? That's good at that skill set and has had demonstrated success in their own life using that skill set. That's the subtext of what you get out of interacting inside of the groups, apart from the cool activities and the thought jogger that happens there and the educational component up to it. But remember to build your network as an asset and to continually just chip away at it. It's one of those things that's like passive income. You just keep putting in tokens every single week into building your network, and eventually you have this ultra strong network of people to work with. So Gina, I think you were going to kick off us with the questions today, right? And going into the breakout rooms.
Yeah, sure. Hey, everybody. Welcome. I see we have a couple of people that were here last week and a couple that weren't. So welcome, everybody. For those of you that may not have been with us last week was all about going through how do we prioritize our activities, and particularly as they relate to the goals that we have set for ourselves. And Scott walked Robert through a great exercise using the Eisenhower box to prioritize actions that might be necessary for the goal, but really then how do you prioritize them, right? And so in the Eisenhower box, so for those of you that may or may not have it, we have it on page 214 in our planners. And then also Liz, one of our designers, Leah, can you hold up the sheet again? Created a sheet for us for those that may not have had the planner that is allowing you to do that same priority, where we're really looking at, thank you, Leah, where we're looking at those things that are important and urgent, those things that are important and not urgent, those things that are not important and urgent. Now that's an interesting one, not important and urgent, and then not important and not urgent. And because this is something that General Eisenhower actually used, that's why it's called the Eisenhower method, to actually prioritize the activities that he was going to do. And we recognize that when you use these things, if you have a challenge with priority and getting and achieving your goals, this is a good tool to use. So that's just kind of a recap of what we did last week. But as we go into the breakout groups, as we've been doing for the last several weeks, we want you to have an opportunity to share with others what your experience was in using the tool. So Ken, if you want to post those breakout questions, but basically when you go into your breakout teams, it's an opportunity for you to share insights with your other team members about your experience with the tool, because we recognize that we just don't learn from Scott or myself. We learn from everybody on here. I mean, there's always things that I learn every time I come into one of these sessions, and I know Scott does as well. And so we want you to be able to hear from each other, and you're going through the same experiences. So the first thing we just invite you to share is what your experience was with using the Eisenhower box. If for whatever reason you weren't able to use it, it's okay, just listen. And then what things did you find are important and urgent to meet your number one Q1 goal? And then what things did you discover? This is the fun one. What things did you discover that are on your list or that you may be doing that happen to be not important and not urgent? Because human nature side sometimes says we do the easy stuff, and the easy stuff is sometimes the not important and not urgent. But that's just standing in the way of what you're doing to be able to get you to the priorities that are important and are urgent to get you closer to your goal. So with that, I think, Ken, you can break us out. It looks like it's going to be, well, yeah, groups of 3 like you normally do. That should work.
Howdy, 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 everyone. Look at us back here, a bunch of beautiful people. See Julie. Julie's here today. Julie and Alex and Leah. We got Robert here. We got Matthew, Connie, Tayden. Man, we got a full crew here today, guys, of everybody here together. Thanks for everybody for having your cameras on. It just helps me able to see a little bit about like whatever I'm saying, whether it resonates with everybody here or not too. So Gina, let's do the debrief of everybody coming back in, and then we'll get to the educational components.
Yeah, so who would like to share on behalf of their group? Anybody got any insights they want to share? Raise your hand.
I saw Connie drop a sweet quote into the chat, and I was wondering if Connie would actually share a little bit about that before we get going. Connie, would you share a little bit more
Oh,
about
yeah.
what's important to you about
Yes.
that quote?
Sure, I'll be happy to, but my video today is a bit wonky, so I'll just turn it off so you guys don't
Sure,
get,
that's
like
fine.
horizontal.
Oh,
Yeah.
you want us to live in a different
Yeah.
world. The
It's a
vertical
horizontal
world.
I am today.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I got a lot out of last week's session, and I did some more research on it and came across this quote, which I really liked. And that also helped me think about Stephen Covey, who talked about how we should spend most of our time doing the things that are important but not urgent, right? So important but not urgent are things that we really need to decide about. We need to decide that they're important, then we need to schedule them, schedule a time to do it. So let's take an example of exercise. Exercise is important but not urgent. But if we don't do it, we don't take care of our health on a regular basis consistently, it can quickly become urgent and important because we're in the hospital with a heart attack, right? So in any case, you know, that was where I found this quote really resonated with me to help me really take an honest look at what I think is important and urgent. Is it really? Right? Is it really? And the other thing that I really learned from that was so impactful to me from last week's session was what is important but not urgent, and urgent not important will often appear or seem to be both urgent and important due to our emotions. I never thought about this, Scott and Gina, but it really brought that home to me that sometimes I just feel annoyed by stuff and I just want to get it done or off my plate. So then I reprioritize it in the face of other things which are actually, you know, I should be spending my time on. So that was helped me to start looking at, okay, how am I scheduling? Why am I scheduling? And am I letting emotions rule my schedule, right? Let me have the discipline to schedule a time for it.
Yes.
Right. So that's what I learned. Today I learned TIL from last week.
I love it. Connie, I love so much of what you said there. But what was coming to me was like, okay, you know, so often we think, okay, I know what's important and I know what's urgent, but it's also like this, like, is it really important? Is it really urgent? And if so, what's the reason behind that, right? And where is this coming from? I love that you put your emotions in there, right? Is this based on, you know, a truth that's going to move you forward? Or is it just because you're in a state of high emotion, high anxiety, high stress, whatever? Or is it because somebody else is telling you that it's important and urgent, right? Exactly. So it's really, there's really a lot of depth to this that we'll really unpack as we go through the next 13 weeks, because we're just touching the surface when we start working on some of those things. But there's some great insights in there, Connie. We appreciate you sharing that. Liz, you had your hand up. Did you want to share something? Or did you just put your hand up? Okay. Leah, Alex, Robert, I have a question for you if you're able to talk. I know you may be in a situation where you can't right now, but what other work did you do as you went through the week, having been the, you know, so-called guinea pig last week?
Yeah, so the reason that I'm not showing my video is that I'm in
good
my
reason.
car.
Good reason.
But so the work with regard to the Eisenhower box that we did last week was great in terms of kind of refining my model, my thinking model really around what I wanted. And so I spent a lot of time, and my wife and I actually spent a lot of time together discussing what, because there's a lot of different things that we know that we could do. And so we sort of refined what we want to start with, or what we want to do, what we want our first deal to be. And I think that was really helpful.
That's great. And I love how you brought in the person in your life that's going to be either impacted, or it's also important to do those activities. So that is great insights. Leah, I know you did some work on your Eisenhower box, and you were sharing a little bit as you came into the call this morning, some insights. Would you like to share a little bit what your experience was?
I think that what came up just for me, as well as for others in the group that we just discussed, is that we all have many systems, to-do lists, calendars, and taking the time to prioritize. And I've said for me personally, when I force myself to take a couple minutes in the morning and a couple minutes at night to plan out the next day, it's almost like they talk about setting intentions and being mindful, even if it doesn't work out exactly. Maybe I'll take an Eisenhower box, and then I like this Ivy Lee method also, and I have a little worksheet. It's a nothing just to make notes. I can organize them, and I'll actually even set a time for them so that maybe I don't really want to be scheduled, or that schedule doesn't work out exactly. Just having that done, and literally you're talking about a couple minutes worth, makes you so much more effective. You suddenly find that somehow you've actually finished everything on your list that maybe you would have just gotten yourself distracted with something else, just because you took some time to write it down and to really maybe focus the night before on what you want to accomplish for the next day.
I love it. And Leah, you're gonna you're teeing it up quite well for the topic of today, to some degree, because what you're doing as you're writing down and setting your intentions and setting the focus the night before is, whether we realize it or not, we're creating a vision in our mind that this is what I intend to do tomorrow, right? This is what I intend to do to get done. And so that's really starting into that, setting the vision for tomorrow. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. So you tipped in a little bit of the content from today with your comments. So well done. Good stuff. Anybody else have anything? Connie shared another favorite quote in the chat. Lack of preparation on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. Oh my goodness, that is so awesome, Connie. I love that quote, because so often our priorities get disrupted by somebody else's lack of prioritization and organization. And it's up to us. It is up to us as the people that get to say yay or nay. I choose to do the thing you asked me to do, whether we're going to do it or not. And obviously we want to, if we say we can't do that, we want to do that in a very respectful way. However, it is up to us, right? We make the choice ultimately, whether we choose to let somebody else take away set us off course, or whether we stay the course. So that's another great quote. And Liz says that was my favorite quote as a teacher. Yes, but we run into that so often. It's just amazing. If you look at some of our lists, if we keep lists, how often we get disrupted by other people's demands. But guess who's allowing that to happen? Us. We can blame it on anybody we want to, but it's us that's making that choice. So great stuff. Alex, anything from you?
Sorry about that. I have to
No worries.
turn it on. So, we all get caught up with busy work. And then at the end of the day, when you do inventory, it's just how much of that really contributed to that, right?
Yeah.
And if you're like me, well, I've got multiple things, multiple projects. And although I understand setting goals, setting objectives, SMART goals, we've been exposed to that. The exercise last week kind of brought that home, that since I have multiple projects, that I really need to take the time, to build that Eisenhower box. And, it's nice to have the board on the overall scheme of things, but I figured I better get my co-founder to be involved in what I'm doing here and maybe get him up to speed so we can be on the same, right? So we don't want to be rowing at a different, we don't get anywhere, right? And so, like Leah said, we've got all sorts of calendars, to-do lists, different guides, and we do this. And that adds to the busy work that we are engaged in on a daily basis. And so I really came to realize that with all these multiple businesses and projects I'm engaged in, and they're always coming, right? You always want to engage, and then you have to learn to say no, and it's hard. And because you're involved and you're really passionate about what it is. But once you commit, then it gets added to the list. And how do you get all of these things organized? So it really brought that home to me. Although I didn't work specifically on what I needed to do in terms of the Eisenhower box to all the different projects, I come to that realization. So it's something that I need to do, be really focused on it and start to work on. For example, we're setting up a vineyard capital fund. And although my partner and I are working on it different ways here and there and so on, and it becomes a priority when we engage, when we do our regular calls. But the rest of the week, I'm involved in other things. And because I've got multiple things going on, it's really hard to be productive. Unlike some of you who are doing just one thing, it's easy to organize. So it's an added challenge, but at the same time, I welcome that, having that kind of a tool, right, that I can use. I look at that akin to what do you call that, like a pulley when I'm trying to build something. I gotta have a tool that I can lift some big heavy stuff, so I can.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no way I could just carry them myself, which is what I've been doing.
That's the thing, right? And so, a juggler, if you've ever watched a juggler, they start out with 2 balls, they add a 3rd ball, add a 4th ball. At some point, if they add too many balls, guess what happens? All of them fall, right? So there's only so many balls we can handle. Each of us can handle a different amount of balls at the same time. But it's important to know what you can handle, understand your boundaries and your priorities, and then know when maybe it's time to bring in other people to help you, as you were talking about. Maybe it's time to bring in your co-founder, because there's only so many things you can do at one time by yourself and be effective. So great insights. All right.
I got to add on to that one.
Yeah.
What does it feel like? What is the awareness, and what does it feel like when I have too many balls in the air and it's about to fall apart? What does that feel like? Because my feeling is my internal check, right? That's how I kind of know what I'm able to do. That's the feedback system my body gives me and my mind gives me about what's going on. So I'm just wondering about that. Who has about people's experience about, like, what does it feel like when I have too much going on, and if I continue, I'm very likely either to burn out or everything's going to fall apart like the juggler. Alex, do you have an assessment of that, of what it feels like for you when you're at that point?
The reality of it, Scott, is that if it's a big project, right, and then it goes through a process, if it's not a disciplined, purposeful way of working on things on a regular basis, because if that's the full-time job that you do 8 hours a day, and how much of those are productive, I don't know. You can get there a lot quicker. You can get it done. The reality is this thing just extends and extends and extends, right? And you do
what you're describing right now is a lack of focus on execution.
Correct.
That what they're trying out is that is the entrepreneurial trap. I can see opportunity. I never want to let opportunity go, so I spin more things up. And what it's going to feel like, if you're like Alex here, to shortcut you guys so we can get into the education about what it is, and we'll dive more into it here in the next 13-week cycle. What it's going to feel like is that your life is a vortex, and that energy is sucked out of you into all of these things. And when you look at it, you say, I don't know why it's not happening faster. That's what it'll feel like. And that's the internal check to say, I need to scope down how much I'm doing. I'm actually taking on more things than I can effectively drive or execute on, right? Here's the other challenge. We've probably never leaned into Eisenhower boxes or prioritization before. So the exercise itself will not feel comfortable. And you're doubly not going to like the exercise, because the exercise is going to tell you you actually aren't capable of doing as much as you think you can. Yeah. So that you're not going to like it, Alex. I don't like it. None of us here that are like thoroughbred, like race horses of entrepreneurialism like it, because it feels like I'm having to spend a bunch of time. And after I spend all that time, when I realize I can't do all the exciting things that I want to go do, and then I say, shit. What am I going to do now? All right, well, this isn't nearly as exciting. Here's the other thing I learned, though, through my years of experience doing it, is that when I would commit to the process of prioritization and narrowing down the task, the win that it felt in getting things over the finish line in a way that was durable, meaning after I stopped pouring energy into it, does it still maintain and grow without me? That feels amazing, right? So it's the same question we always will run into in our lives, and the awareness, which is, do I want to feel good now, or do I want to feel amazing later? Because feel good now is churning the cycle. It's the Snickers bar, right? For your health. It's the new idea that I want to spin up and kick out to my team to work on, because it's a new exciting opportunity. That is sugar. And for some people, it's like cocaine. They hit it and they can't stop it. They're like, I have to just come up with new ideas. And what we have to get used to is how to train ourselves to be excited about eating broccoli, because broccoli is what gets us to where we want to go. ultimately, right? But it's just not like exciting in the moment, right? So I'd say lean into it. If it feels uncomfortable to you, fantastic. That means it's also the thing that you most need to do, right? And to commit to that process and then see what happens with everything else. And I guarantee you that if you do that, if you're in that entrepreneurial space and you do that, you're gonna start feeling what I'm talking about, which is I don't feel good in the moment. Each day is not exciting for me to do, but I feel internally more rewarded by the accomplishments that I'm making. Yeah. Okay, cool. So today, actually, we're going to spin off into a little bit different of a question that comes up for us. And the big question that's going to come up for us here today is, what do I do when I know exactly what I need to do and I don't do it? What do I do when I know exactly what it is I need to do and I don't do it? Yeah. I think Gina's laughing right now because this is something I was complaining to her about last week. So Gina, I know exactly what I need to do inside of RLS right now. I have a very clear vision of like what it is, the work that I need to personally be doing. And I was like, the problem I'm having is I don't want to do it at all and do it. And so we start to have a talk about that. It's like, great, how do we get into that place of saying, here, this is the way to make that easier and better for you. So a couple of things, guys, to look at is let's just go ahead and take it from the very top of how do we operate all the way to into the piece of learning that we're going to have here today. So as a form of refresher, I'm going to go ahead and get this camera to work right here for us. And so we know that from the very beginning of the things that we talked about, right? We talked about step one is what energizes me. Remember we talked about this before, what things energize me, what things drain me, right? What things are nourishing to me. This was like the zappers or the energizing pieces, right? So the first question we always ask ourselves is what energizes me about this area of my life, right? This is actually where me and Gina's initial conversation started because I said, I don't want to go back into R&Ding a new and better sales process. She said, well, how could you change that to so it would be something that would be energizing to you? What's a different vision that you could have here about creating a new and better sales process that's going to be energizing for you, Scott? I said, okay, cool. Let me work on that. I'll create a new vision for what that is going to look like for me. And then I had to ask myself another question. I said, well, okay, cool. Now I have a good vision of what that's going to look like. Then I had to ask myself, okay, what do I want? I know it's energizing here, but what do I actually want here? What is it that I really want out of this experience in my life called building this new and better sales system that I think is going to be much more powerful at being able to impact people and bring them into our community? So, well, what do I really want? It's like, well, I really want a spirit-led sales team. I want a sales team that is connected to themselves, is able to connect to other people, and is really highly knowledgeable about a holistic landscape of what impacts people's lives and their finances, their insurance, their investments, and how does it all integrate together? And how can we develop a team that's able to do that? That's what I really want. I think if I can develop that, I'm really going to be able to impact people, and especially if I can make it where the average person can afford to do it, which is our model, right? The very best for the average investor. Then what I'll ask myself is, great, after I know it is what do I want, I have to ask myself, like, what do I need to do? This is the thing that we covered off on last week, yeah? What do I need to do? This is your Eisenhower boxes and Ivy method, right? These are the tasks that are going to help drive towards what it is you want so that you can then turn around and build the vision that you're looking to create. So then what happens is this last part. Did I do it? And this is what we're talking about here today. What happens if I didn't do it and I don't see myself doing it? Now, when we say why I didn't do it, who has a favorite cop-out for why they didn't do it? I have a couple that I really like to use, and they make me feel so good about not doing the things I know I needed to do. Leah, what's your favorite cop-out?
Family, the children, household.
Family, children, household. What could be more important than family, children, and household? Isn't money less important than family, children, and household? You can rationalize that all day into saying, hey, I don't need to be doing this other thing. I need to be focused on my family as it comes into it. Julie, what's your favorite cop-out?
I don't know.
Ooh, Julie doesn't
Still
know
thinking.
cop-out. What's the thing that you like to tell yourself whenever you don't do the thing that you set your goal to do? Or do you just always hit your goals 1,000% of the time?
I don't know.
Okay. All right.
Perfect answer.
All right. Well, we'll look at that. We'll look at that as we go through in the weeks about like, hey, cool. What goals are we setting? What does it feel like? What does it feel like when I don't hit my goals? And then what choice did I make that was more important to me than hitting my goal?
Well, and Scott, I want to offer perhaps, and I'm not saying this, Julie, to call you out, but sometimes the first answer I give is my cop out. So I don't know, sometimes can be a cop out. Just something to consider.
Maybe like, I don't know what to do.
Yep. That's yeah.
Not enough information.
Yeah.
This is a common one, Julie. I don't know if that's ever true for you, because I know that you know everything, but for other people out here that maybe don't,
And we oftentimes don't really know that for ourselves either, right? So
for
it's
sure.
just something.
For sure. Cool. Alex, what's your favorite cop out?
Scott, I just get too busy. That's it, right? I don't make excuses for this or that and so on. I just get caught up with so many stuff, right? And I don't even think it's a cop out, but that's my down. That's my downside, right?
Yeah.
I got too much stuff going on.
But I would challenge here is that saying, if we set a goal using our Eisenhower box, right? And we knew that when we set our Eisenhower box that the things were in this quadrant, they said they're important and urgent for us to do. Then what does this mean? What is the story I'm telling myself about this that says I'm okay not having done that? Is this really true? This is a question that we all have to ask ourselves, right? This is an internal dialogue that we do inside of ourselves to question some of our own belief systems that we run. Because it could be that we have a belief system that says I'm too busy. Yeah. But the reality could be different. I tell myself sometimes I'm too busy, and I'm like, wait a minute though. Last night you spent an hour watching Seinfeld on Netflix. So is the issue really that you're too busy? Or was it something else, right? That's going on. So as we're going to talk about a little bit, we're going to dive into it a little bit right now. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit of what my experience has been with it. And thank you guys for volunteering about cop-outs. I know sometimes it's like oh, that doesn't make me look good. And I'll tell you right now, nobody cares how good you look in this group. We only care about how much we can support each other to success. And that means looking at the ugly stuff, just like looking at the pretty stuff as we go through.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, and Liz and Connie put in the chat, Liz is, it might not come out perfect. That's a good cop out. And then Connie's is, I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah,
Those are all good cop outs.
Get
Yep.
it over, right?
Yep.
So we're going to be working on it next week and the following weeks about how do we use the planner to help us get into some more awareness around some of those things. But today, what I want to talk to you guys a little bit about is that key question that we had here that says, well, I can know what I need to do, and I won't do it because I have all of these really good reasons, right, of why I'm not going to do the thing I need to do. But maybe actually what's actually happening to us, guys, I would just offer to you for your consideration. What if what's actually happening here is that the task that we set, we believe is easy, but it's hard. And we might have lots of reasons to believe that it's easy, but it's actually hard. And in fact, we know it's hard because we're making a different choice that tells us, I don't want to do the hard thing. I'd rather do the easy thing. And I can tell myself it's okay for me to go do the easy thing because I don't really want to look at that hard thing into it. So if that's true, then the question in my mind becomes, how do you make the hard thing easier to do? How is that possible? I know that sounds crazy. It sounds like voodoo. It sounds like magic. How could you just wave a magic wand and make things that are hard to do easier to do? The trick is that the hard thing to do is not actually hard to do. It's hard for you to do. Whatever is going on inside of you, whatever behavior patterns and belief systems that you have running, make it difficult for you to do it. Could be super easy for somebody else. They might be able to do it in 10 minutes. You might struggle for 3 days procrastinating on it because you don't want to do it, because it's actually hard for you to do, which is why you keep procrastinating on it, because you're like, that's too much. It's too hard. So what do? It's really simple. All you have to do is change your brain. But how do you change your brain? Well, this is where neuroscience has actually come in to help us be able to understand a mechanism that people have actually known for thousands of years into it, which is where you find a lot of actually really good wisdom. It's from people in the past that just tried a bunch of stuff and see what stuck around for thousands of years. Stuck around for thousands of years, it's probably a pretty good system and process for how to do something, right? So what's the way that people do that? And what's the way that brain science explains how to do it? Brain science tells us that our decision-making almost all the time is purely automatic. We have an illusion of thinking that we're making all these choices, but what's happening is we're repeating habits of behavior. And the habits of behavior that we're actually repeating are derived from the fact that our brain works in decision trees. And the more times we've made a particular decision, the deeper the grooves run that allow the neurons to be able to flow in that direction. And that's actually where decisions get made. We have this perception that we're always making the decisions, but we know from the brain science that actually the brain is making decisions and we merely become aware of it. So if you look at an experiment that was actually done by Sam Harris and some through fMRI technology, which is the technology that can actually scan your brain waves, what they were able to see in running an experiment is they asked somebody that had a can. The can was sitting on the table, right? And they said, listen, what we want you to do is you can sit here for as long as you want. And whenever you decide to pick up the can, verbally alert us that I'm going to pick it up, or like some word, some signal. What they found is that the brain center that makes the decision to pick up the can actually fires well before you become aware to verbalize it. So what that actually means is that your brain is actually making a decision. We can see that from the fMRI machine, and that we only become aware of the decision our brain made, but we have the perception that we're making the choice. This I know sounds wild, right? Into it. But here's why this is so cool. Because you can actually change the route that your neurons travel to develop a different groove. And when you develop a different groove, making that other choice becomes easier, whatever that choice is going to be. And there's two major ways that you'll be able to make that choice easier. The first one is you want to use there's three different core mechanics. One is, and they all target, I want to underline here, they all target the same thing, which is how do you make the biggest groove the fastest in your brain? So to make the biggest groove the fastest in your brain, here's what you need to do. One, you need to have an excited emotional state. The more emotionally charged whatever your experience is, the stronger the groove that gets created. The second thing to do is visualize it in your head of whatever the action is going to be. Your brain actually doesn't know the difference between what you visualize and what you actually do. Your brain is actually just making up pictures in your head, which is what you think you're seeing every day. So it really doesn't know the difference between a powerful visualization and you really seeing it. And the third thing to do is to actually state it. And when you verbally state it. So if you have a strong emotion with a clear visualization and a statement or an affirmation, that's how you create the groove in your brain. The bigger the grooves are that are in your brain, the more automatic or the less energy it takes for you to be able to make that decision. So if you want to be able to take on harder and harder decisions, you want to be able to change those behaviors even more and make them easier for you to be able to accelerate your growth faster, the way you do that is to be able to make those choices easier for you to make by using this principle. Okay, cool. So what I want everybody to do is go ahead and turn into your RLP, yeah? And go to page 22, 23, where we have this section on affirmations and visualizations.
Hey, Scott, I want to say one thing real quick, if you don't mind. So you made a point, and this is very important for everyone to understand this, because this is going to be something to watch for over the next week or so. So you made a point that the brain only will do what it thinks, basically, right? What you tell it. So that's oftentimes we think of affirmations as positive, and they should, but do you recognize how often we actually tell our brain something like, I can't do it, that then says, oh, okay, you can't do it, then I'll make that so. So we just need to be cautious that so often, like I heard this stuff about affirmations and I'm like, okay, that's great. I didn't realize how often I was affirming something I didn't want versus affirming what I do want. So that's very important to kind of pay attention to that as we move along.
And Gina, sorry, I just want to add this point, right? The reality of it is that there are those actions that you know is very important. You recognize it. Your brain wants to do it. The problem is that you are concerned about the implication of that action, right? Mm-hmm. And so consequently, you don't do it. And what I saw on the other side of that fence are people that don't really overthink things and they just do it. And once they do it, then they get somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. And of course,
yep. Yep. That's what Connie and Leah are saying. Just do it. And that's where Scott's going to pick up now. But that's important because we oftentimes affirm ourselves out of doing things. So go for it, Scott.
Love it. Yeah. Thank you, Alex. So here, guys, I don't know if you guys ever, so here's where I'm looking at here inside of the journal. It's right above your fishes. Yeah. And the things that I want us to look about right now, just quickly as a team here, is when you looked at your Eisenhower box, right, of what were the things that were the priority items that you have established, what is the action step you actually need to take in furtherance of that priority item? Is it clear? Like physically, what needs to happen for you to do it, right? So for me, right, let's just go ahead and take me for an example of saying, hey, Scott, you're going to get back into sales work to be able to R&D this better sales process about how to help people. What do you need to go do to do that? What is that going to look like? So my affirmation here is I'm going to just say, I am making phone calls. That's the step I'm at. Am I making phone calls or not? I need the activity of making phone calls to be something that I don't hate for me to be successful in this job. They're like, God, I really don't like reaching out to people cold and talking to them, but that's what's needed. So how do I get comfortable doing that? I said, hey, cool. I'm just going to get used to my brain realizing that I'm making phone calls. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to visualize myself talking on my phone, right? Is exactly in my office. I'm talking on my phone. I'm excited to be helping these people. I'm so happy that I have the opportunity to connect with this person. And I'm going to repeat that to myself. So I'm going to visualize myself making the phone calls. I'm going to feel the excited, energetic state of me being able to help people because that's my core value is being able to help others. So I'm going to feel what that feels like. And then I could even act it out if I wanted to. What that process does is actually makes the thing about making phone calls a lot easier to actually do, a lot less costly for me as a person to have to do it. Because the more things that I have to do that I don't like to do, the more it drains my batteries. Those are the zappers. So in doing this takes a zapper and potentially turns a zapper into a lightener, right? Or an energizer that you have, right? At the very least, it's going to make the zapper less, right? But you could actually flip the zapper to something else that you need to do. What else do I need to do? I need to track my effectiveness with funnels. So I would say I am, so I didn't do this one right. I'd say I am tracking to my goal. And for this one, I'm going to visualize myself actually filling in my Excel spreadsheet and building the funnel of like, okay, great. Here's my Excel spreadsheet. Here's how it works for me making a phone call to somebody to how am I actually helping this person move forward with doing something? But the first thing I need to do is I need to get really good at feeling good about tracking to my goal and saying like, hey, I'm going to get comfortable with that process. And maybe for me, I only need 2 for right now. And I really just need to work the 2 because really the only truly critical things is, am I making the phone calls and am I tracking my success? And that's going to be the easiest way for me to get started into it. And I know that it's going to be easier for me to do because I'm going to be doing the affirmations and visualizations of these activities to turn it from a zapper to an energizer. And the way I'm going to do that is by linking these activities to my value of helping others. And get my brain to connect that these activities that you don't like to do, Scott, is actually the most effective way you can get what you really want, which is fulfilling of your value of helping other people. Right? It's nothing more than this 4-step process, right? We're just down here saying, great, I see myself doing this. How can I make this and back into something that energizes me by having an affirmation of visualization about it, that it makes this now energizing. Whatever the activity is that I don't want to do, right? Or I'm not excited to go do, because I think we could all say like, hey, if I'm excited enough, I can actually go get myself to do anything. I'll always make time to do the things that I'm truly excited and like lit up inside to go do. So how can I make that happen? Those activities actually be the ones that energize me. And it's really simple. It's an I am statement. I am the action step of whatever it is, and then a simple result.
And the I am piece of that is extremely important, because that's that's putting yourself in the present. That's your brain saying, I'm doing it right now, right? I am, instead of I need to, or I should, or I would, or I whatever. I am sets it in motion.
Yeah, that's the exact format. Don't deviate from this format. This is a 1,000-year-old format. Into it of like what works here. Cool. So what we're going to see, guys, and here's where I want to link it back up to, because I think it's important to see how this piece fits in the bigger picture, because otherwise it's easier for us to look at it and be like, God, I've heard of visualizations before. God, I've heard of affirmations before. I tried that stuff. I didn't really get to where it goes. Don't worry about it. If you feel that way, just stay in the process. Eventually, we're going to get to here in the next couple of weeks. We're going to get deeper into the tool. You're going to start to feel the pain of not being as effective as you want to be. And the tool is going to show that to you. And they're going to be like, smokes. Maybe I should go back and try to do the visualizations, because, man, this is painful to be this aware of what's going on with me and this aware of where I'm not getting as much as I want to out of life and to it. And it's a beautiful pain, guys. It's the best thing in the world, because now your mindset of who you are and what you're capable of starts to line up in reality, and it lessens the anxiety of thinking I need to be better or I need to be doing more, right? You can start to accept the fact that I'm only capable of doing what I'm capable of doing. How do I run a process that supports me of being able to be more realistic with what I can do and more effective with what it is I am actually capable of, right? So that's where you get to that inner peace that comes from it. So I hope you guys picked. I know this is a lot of stuff today. I know we connected up like what is I want, my vision for my life. How do I push through a tool? What is the spiritual practice that allows me in my brain to make things easier for me to do? And how does that ultimately create inner peace in my life? I don't know how we could have gone through a more intense 20-minute educational session today that just jams in like, here's the core concepts of all the ideas and how they link together. But if that was fast for you today, I recommend that you go through and rewatch at least the educational component of what we did here today. You might want to listen to it a few times, because if your brain isn't naturally thinking in this context, you're not being as effective as you could be, right? Because when your brain starts to naturally think through these tools in this context, the more quickly you'll just be able to intuit, here's what I need to go do and here's why. And here's where the energy's at, how do I follow it? You know, and you can just pick up whatever life gives you and be a much more effective creator from it. Awesome, guys. So I want to just close out today. I know we're at time. Was there any other announcements that we had, Gina, before we close for today?
No, I don't think so. I don't think we have any. Just watch for your replay emails, and I don't think there's anything else.
I'd say just watch for the replay emails and forward those out if you feel like it's appropriate.
Yeah.
Close with a couple of quick things here, guys, because we're recording these videos as like a course for other people as they come onto the team. And since you guys have been here every week, I was wondering if we could just tag a couple, maybe like 2, 3, if everybody can just share one, maybe that'd actually be great, of like what was valuable out of today. What was the nugget that stood out to you today to be like, hey, that's what I'm taking with me out of after I get off this call today. Leah, would you mind kicking us off?
For me, it was these last 3 steps about how to really make choices almost in a more automatic way, making it more emotionally charged and exciting, visualizing it, and then verbally stating it, particularly using present tense. I think that that's the idea of making like a new synapse in the brain.
Awesome. Cool. Who wants to go next? Just unmute yourself and share.
This is Connie, and I would say I always try to boil it down to today I learned, right? So I've always used affirmations, but in a very general, positive way. But now I can make a very specific one to tackle something I want and need to do, but haven't been doing. So I wrote, I am lifting weights every day.
There you go. That's it. It's just that simple, Connie. You nailed it. Cool. Alex, what about for you, brother?
I am going to do my Eisenhower box. It's about priority action, because at the end of the day, I can look back my 8 hours and how much time did I really spend towards
So
my goal.
Eisenhower box hit Alex today. He said, man, wasn't so sure on it last week, but this week coming into it, I'm seeing it, baby. And that's what I need to be doing. That's awesome. Julie, what came up for you today?
I think it's how to turn the zappers into energizers and find the excitement in those things. And I think just get started, because the starting is hard. Once you start, you will build momentum, and then it's easier to get going.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. Who else? Matt or Matthew, are you on with us here today, or are you just on mute?
Sorry, I've been doing a workout.
That's it. You keep going after it, brother. Just pick up your value added today, bud.
Try to find areas that you can combine things. Like if I have to get a message across to a contractor, I would try to get my whole team there, my property management team and the other contractors, and be proactive about goals. So I like the Eisenhower method. I have a similar thing where I have priority by the day, by the week, by the month, by the quarter, by the year. And then I prioritize each one of those columns. So it's kind of similar to Eisenhower. I feel like the Eisenhower is more reactive to putting out fires, which I think is good. When fires come in, you got to prioritize them. With Eisenhower, kind of like you're in a war. But also you need to take the beginning of the month, week, year, quarter, and strategize and be proactive. And what I found is if you don't have a proactive strategy, then you just kind of go with the flow, where you say, well, how's that project going, contractor? Is it almost done? But if you have proactive goals, like, hey, this has got to be done by March 1st. How are we doing there? Okay, well, we can't get it done. It's going to be 10 days late. What about the other unit? Can we get that one done by the 1st? I can fill that lease quickly, right? So it's kind of similar.
Well,
And I made a rule.
I'd offer to you,
I don't watch any media unless I'm exercising. So that's a rule in my life. So if I watch a movie, I know that's associated with exercise. I never sit down. So just try to combine as much as you can together, get as much done, because there's only so much time in the day.
Absolutely. So can you use the time to be able to double task onto it? Thanks, Matt. And for getting us in on your workout. I think you're inspiring us all over here to getting after it. I would posit one idea to just consider for everybody, because Matt was talking, says, hey, well, maybe the Eisenhower boxes are a really reactive tool that comes in of like, where would I prioritize what it is that I need to do? What I would proffer just as a suggestion, or just something to think about out of there, is let's think about if that weren't true, how could it be true that the Eisenhower method would be used on a non-reactive basis? And to me, the first thing that comes to mind is it might have to do with how big the goal is. That if I have a year long, what I'm really saying is I have a desire within the next 5 years to start and create an amazing family, then I might have to start asking myself, well, what are going to be all the important and urgent things that I need to start working on right now to be able to set the foundation for that? One's like, well, shoot, I better find a right partner. I better figure out, like, how do I even know what a right partner looks like? What are those things? And they can take longer time scales the bigger the goal is. But you will still find that there's a bunch of unimportant crap you'll think about. And no matter what the goal is, no matter what you're trying to achieve, no matter how big it is, and no matter what the time scales are into it. And if you need help with thinking through that on a bigger time scale piece, love to be able to do a workshop on that. Maybe we can set up a time to actually go through and start to work through some of these tools together for a couple hours. And I can demo that for you guys like we did last week with using the quote unquote guinea pig kind of style of what we do. But hey guys, I know we're over time here today. I want to say thank you.
Scott, this is my organizer calendar. I don't know if it's coming across, right?
Yeah,
Can you guys see it?
I saw a glimpse of it, but not really.
Okay. But anyway, it's one of those calendars, right? Well, guess what? This calendar or to-do list of things to do is gonna have the 4 quadrant,
My man.
right?
There you
We'll come
go.
back in next week, Alex. Show us how that works for you next week when we come back in. All right, brother?
If I figure out the camera.
I love it. Thanks, guys. Take care. Have a fantastic day. Look forward to seeing you in the Discord channel if you can join up there and join in on the conversation.